everyone, Cherries here. Welcome back to a new video. I hope you had a great start of the year. The first month usually feels long, but this year felt like it went by so fast for me because of the projects I'm already working on. But today, it's time for a new monthly bullet journal setup. February is almost here, so if you're planning along, grab your bullet journals and let's start this February 2024 Plan With Me video. February is always about hearts and valentines, though it is sweet and romantic. I like the theme for this month to be different, but similar to my previous themes, which are botanicals or houseplants. Similar because I've done this several times in the past, and I usually do it in March, but I'm giving the botanical crown to February this year because why not? I will be doing watercolor illustrations in this setup. All the supplies I'm using are listed down on the video description if you're interested in any of them. If you remember, I mentioned in my previous Plan With Me video that I struggled painting with watercolors on this updated Archer and Olive notebook because of the coating on the paper, but I'm patiently using this medium here just because I have specific colors in mind that watercolors make them easy to achieve. But of course, you can always use other coloring supplies like brush pens if you want to recreate this theme. Earlier, we just picked up a couple greens and yellow on my palette. The colors are shown on the screen, by the way, for your reference. We also masked the sides with washi tapes and then start painting my cover page, beginning with the plants. The inspiration for this cover is a girl reading a book by the window and surrounded by indoor plants. So we're painting various plants. We have a hanging plant, some with long leaves and big leaves. These can actually be anything. You can look at real life plants and use them as reference. We're painting the light layers first. We're also alternating between shades of green. The main colors on my palette are olive green and sap green, but I also mix in a bit of viridian and black to the sap green and Van Dyke brown to the olive green to create a darker shade and use them to paint the shadows and details of the leaves. These doesn't have to be anything realistic, so just have fun painting or drawing. I think leaves are one of the easy painting exercises you can do if you are a beginner in watercolors. You can paint them loosely or a bit structured. So we have these plants that kind of forming a frame to our composition, and we're also painting a couple small ones on the floor. I've been drawing digitally a lot recently, and I honestly started to get my inspiration from there. It gives me ideas for my themes and also about how I should approach the illustration and paper since I use painting brushes on Procreate to draw. I don't mean it can replace traditional way of painting or drawing, but it's just that when I start a new painting, I usually stare on the paper for like 15 minutes thinking about which part I should go first. Also because I don't like to redo it again, unlike on digital where you can undo a step or test out adding some elements to see if they look good, and if not, you can just instantly remove them. So this time, it was easy for me in a way that I don't have to waste a lot of paper. Once we're done with the leaves, we're painting the pots with a mix of light oxide and burnt sienna. I don't know, but I just decided to go with one color for all of them. but you can definitely use other earthy colors for the pots. I used to dislike art that is done digitally because back then for me, being able to paint skillfully using actual paints is a definition of a true artist. That mindset was also influenced by people's opinion, but I realized I was so wrong in believing that and completely forgot about the animations that made my childhood happy. So now I get to use both mediums, traditional and digital, each to its own advantage. Speaking of digital art, I also released a new sticker collection on my shop called Slow Moments and prints of my digital artwork that is available in A5 and postcard sizes. I'll show you the designs later, but take this February theme as a hint. So if you're a plant lover, I think you'll enjoy the stickers and prints. I wanted to make this illustration look really warm and inviting with a bit of cool tones since we're still in a cold season. So we're applying those colors on the character or the girl reading a book that we're painting on the center. So we started with the face using a light skin tone. It's always better to start light and gradually layer them with a darker skin tone, and then the hair using burnt umber or brown. She's wearing a blue sweater, a pair of yellow pants, and raw umber for the shoes. Then the cover of the book using red and light oxide. I know it's blending with the pots. We'll just go back again to add shadows using a darker tone. This is actually similar to my digital artwork print that I mentioned earlier. It's funny because sometimes I find myself zooming in the paper as if I'm drawing on my iPad. But yeah, both illustrations look different because the details are so small on the size of the page. It's not bad either after I drew the facial features using a thin fine liner. It can be hard for me to paint even using a detail brush, and maybe using something brown or neutral would be better because the rest of the face is soft. I think Sakura Pigmamicron has a thin nib like this in sepia color. I haven't tried that though to see if it's still as dark as the black one. But after that, we're painting the shelves, the glass window or window frames behind, and the floor. We have light coming from the window, so we'll paint the shadows, particularly the shadow of the girl on the floor. If you've been here for a while, I think you'll notice that I like to use similar color schemes when it comes to this kind of theme, and I think it's really nice to be able to create different compositions with these set of colors. Now it's time to write the monthly title. We're simply writing FEB in this uppercase serif font using a black fine liner. When we are done painting, we can finally remove the washi tapes to reveal straight, clean edges. This is always satisfying. And that finishes this February cover page. Let's move on to the other side of the spread for a quote page. I'm using these colored papers to decorate. I cut them into different sizes and abstract shapes and just layered them. Then I want to add a little potted plant here. I decided to use a vellum board instead. It is a 180 GSM paper and it is similar to the old Archer and Olive paper that I like, which absorbs quickly and saves me time rather than using a watercolor paper. I should have used this before, but I'm glad it came to my mind now. We're painting a plant with long, thick leaves using the olive green, and the pot using the same mix of light oxide and burnt sienna. After that, we're cutting the white spaces using a pair of embroidery scissors because it's easy to get close to the smaller areas. I know it's tedious, but you can also scan, print, and cut it using a die-cut machine. Sounds convenient, but the manual option will build your patience, which is a good thing. The quote I'm writing here is from the scripture saying, "Keep sowing your seed, for you will never know which will grow. Perhaps it all will." That is verse 6 from Ecclesiastes chapter 11. Alright, that's finally it for my cover spread. Let's now flip over to the next to create my calendar and monthly planning pages. But let's do some painting again. I wanted to paint the whole spread starting with a wash of the same peachy tone, and I decided to use a bigger filbert brush to make the process quicker. I'm trying to paint white windows with peach colored walls and floors. We're just keeping white spaces for the window frames itself as well as the plants that we will be painting in a bit. We're painting the glass panes of the window with a very light yellow and then using a warm gray brush pen to define the frames. This will be for the calendar. It is similar to my bookstore themed calendar before. I wanted to do a greenhouse kind of design, but I think I'll save that for another time. The boxes on the window exceeds the number we need for a calendar. There will be columns left empty, but it's okay. We haven't written the dates yet and moved on to paint the plants for the meantime. We're painting just a couple on the sides. We have one with long leaves up here and monstera plant on the floor. Monstera is always present in my botanical themes, and I really tried to limit them here this time to try out painting other kinds of plants. You might have noticed that we skipped a page earlier, so you know what it means. We're going to make an interactive layout for my monthly planning and habit trackers. So for that, we're using some more vellum board papers. I have 6 of them here. 4 of them are small and 2 long ones. We're gonna be painting some more potted plants, but we want to make sure that the spaces on each paper has a base about 9 by 8 dot spaces. If you can see, I drew pencil lines. The plants will be painted on top of that base, and the height of each plant can vary. Each page will have 3 cards. I sketched the plants where the short ones are either on the left or right side of the cards, and the tall ones will be on the middle. Forgive me if I sound confusing, but you will get the idea once we are done. So let's start painting our first plant. We're painting on one of the long papers. This is a Ficus tiniki. I don't know if I said that right. But honestly, you can paint anything you want. This can also be great for a plant tracker, so you can paint the specific plants you are taking care of. For this plant, the painting process is pretty easy. We painted the base of the leaves with light green and brown for the pot. Then take a darker green, creating outward strokes from the midrib, leaving a thin line on the center, and without fully painting the whole leaf. We're just doing that on both sides of each leaf. There is also a leaf that is kind of bent sideways, so we're only painting the area where the darker strokes of green would be visible in this perspective. We also went back to paint a light wash of yellow ochre in the lighter parts of the leaves, and finishing this off by adding the shadows on the pot. Onto our second plant is a small fiddle leaf fig tree. Instead of a pot, we're drawing a basket. We're using a mix of yellow ochre and burnt umber. We painted the initial layer with light green likewise, and the darker green on top. This plant has many veins on the leaves. I thought it's easier if I freehand the veins, but I wish I sketched it as well because it was difficult. The third one is a snake plant. This is pretty easy too. We started painting the rectangular pot with yellow ochre. Then the leaves will be painted in 3 layers. Light green for the base, medium green for the second layer where we are leaving the edges light, and lastly is a darker green, creating random strokes just within the medium green and not going outside of that. We still have 3 more cards here, but I decided to paint them off camera since there will be another painting of them later on, so we can save some time. After I painted everything, I cut out the white spaces around the plants, leaving only the writing spaces below. I also already wrote what each card is for. I have 4 events, my goals, and focus nicely arranged for the left-hand side, and the other 3 for my habit trackers on the right side of the spread. We can now remove the washi tapes and cut out where we can insert these using an X-Acto knife and a cutting mat behind the pages. We want to have at least a dot space allowance on both sides. Then we can glue the back on the empty pages. Let's also glue the top of the cuts so they don't block the cards when pulling them out. Alright, let's flip back again. Oh, let's write the calendar already before I completely forget it. Then we can insert our cards here and just showing our plants. It gives an illusion that they are directly painted on the pages. Now we're writing monthly planning and habit tracker titles below using a Tombow calligraphy pen. And lastly, I'm just gonna add some texture to the floor by painting these horizontal lines. And that's everything for this monthly calendar, planning, and habit tracker pages. It's quite an idea again, but I hope it sparked your creativity. Okay, moving on again to the next spread. We're painting a hanging pothos plant on the upper left corner of the spread. The leaves are small, but we're doing almost similar technique we did on the ficus plant. Light green base and then darker green, painting outward strokes from the middle. We're just doing that as well on both sides of the leaves. We're painting the edge of this page with a peach mixture and these colorful rectangular shapes next to it using the colors on our palette. I wanted to use colored paper for this, but I thought it would be hard to cut out the parts where the leaves are, or maybe just glue the paper first and paint on top of it if you don't mind uneven colors of the paint as a result. The devotional I chose is called the Revival Generation. It is an 8-day plan from the YouVersion app. I will leave the link below if you'd like to take that as well. These 8 rectangles are for the keywords of what each day of this devotional is about. This applies for this devotional only because I already saw a sample and I like to base my layout depending on the content of the devotional plan. I came across this 8-day plan while scrolling on the app, and I thought it's even more of a relevant topic during these times. I want to emphasize even more because I've been feeling this in my spirit, and I know many of you are too. I've been following ministries that tell the very same thing as well, so even if I already have an idea of what this devotional is about, it will be a great reminder for me and hopefully to you too if you decide to read it. The next prompt we will be doing here is similar to my pick what you need idea, where I write several random verses that would help me through the month. This is an interesting one because it has been a creative way God would tell me something that I need exactly when I need them, just like in the previous months of incorporating this idea. We're gonna be doing something similar to waterfall cards, but in reverse. So what you will need is 2 cardstocks that is the same length as the notebook page. The width is about 13 dot spaces. I have pink and white, but these can be any color. And then 6 small cards that is 13 by 8 dot spaces. We took one card and glued the bottom edge of it on top of the long white paper. Then we measure 1 centimeter apart for the rest of the cards. We will then fold these lines and attach the edges of the remaining cards likewise. We also folded back the space left on the strip and cut out the excess. Next, we will need a thin strap of paper. We're using this to secure the waterfall tabs on the pink paper. Gently flip up the top card and glue the end of the strip on the base and carefully wrap it around and glue it on the other end. Then we can glue the whole back of the top card on the base so it doesn't fall off. And then attach the pink paper and the back of the strip onto the notebook page so it stays in place. So this is how our reverse waterfall tabs look like. The excess space that we cut earlier is supposed to be the piece that is gently pulled out for this to work, but instead of pulling, we are flipping the cards downwards. Why, you ask? Because I have this idea of a plant growing as I read the Bible verses, so it is like me growing spiritually through God's Word. So the next thing we're doing here is to paint the plant. And I chose the fiddle leaf fig tree again for this. I sketched the leaves slowly so I will know how it looks when I flip the cards. The painting process is just the same like we did in the monthly planning interactive spread. And this time I sketched the veins so it is easier to paint. We painted the pot on the top card as well as the second and third when the cards are flipped back so it doesn't look weird. We put the title Grow Here. I thought it's more fitting than the Pick What You Need. I haven't written the verses at this point too, but I will in the end of the setup. You can add more cards if you want, but you will need to adjust the size of your plant drawing so it doesn't overlap the page. But yeah, that's another fun idea. I hope you enjoyed it. But we need to flip again to the next pages to create my weekly spreads for February. On the page to the left will be my weekly illustration. We glued these colored papers to create a frame to creatively cover white spaces. Then we are illustrating a girl painting botanical pieces. This one was easier for me because it is a back pose or lying down position, so I don't have a face to paint. We started with these base layers again and slowly add these little botanical paintings on the paper or sketchbooks that are gathered around her. You can also paint any plant here like I've said before, and to add other color apart from green, we are also painting a pot and a basket. We are pretty much using the same color palette here, and when we are done with the little botanical paintings, we can start building up the character illustration starting from her hair. We're using a darker brown to paint thin, curvy lines to create texture of the strands, as well as the shadows to create dimension. We are using a light consistency of the light oxide and burnt sienna mix to paint the skin, and darker shade of blue to add shadows and details to her denim jumpsuit. Now our painting is done. We're just gonna write another February just below it using serif font again. I cut out the edges of 3 pages for my weeklies that match the thickness of the frame around our painting. Then we also attach the same pink paper on the other side. I'm using the oatmeal colored paper for the daily boxes where I can write my tasks, these green and purple round stickers for the dates, and simply writing the days of the week using a black fine liner. Onto our final spread in this February setup is my monthly review spread. We're decorating the title using this ripped blue paper and the oatmeal color kind of paper again, and added this plant washi sticker from the washi tape shop. This has become my essential spread in my monthly setups. This is where I can reflect on how my month went. I like to add some guided questions like what am I grateful for, my small wins, challenges, what I learned, and what I need to improve. Then I also have a section for my favorites, like what is my favorite scent, place, passage in the scripture, food, drink, song, movie. The list can go on, but I just wrote the things that I will likely answer. And to complete this setup, I wanted to do a small painting of another potted plant. This is what I said I will be showing you the process of because I skipped it since it's just the same plant. But apart from that, we are also painting a lamp beside it to make it look a bit interesting. The technique in painting the leaves is again similar to our previous ones that has many veins. And since our leaves are kind of stacked together, we're just gonna paint the ones that are under a bit darker so it kind of separates from the other leaves. You already get the idea of painting the pot, but for the lamp, we're simply using brown for the exterior, off-white inside the lamp head, and yellow for the bulb. After that, I just cut out the white spaces again, except for the area on the middle because we will need that space to be glued on the bottom of this pink strip. This acts like a little slot or pocket where we can slide the weekly Dutch door pages in and out. I didn't realize it's covering the movie section on the favorites, but the glue can be gently detached and attached again so I can still write something or I can just leave it blank. Anyway, I wanted to show you my new shop collection. It is called Slow Moments. The holidays was a hectic season for many of us, so the start of the year is always a time for me to slow down and enjoy my time instead of pressuring myself to put content out there. So you will find a lot of slow living inspired character illustrations. These took a lot more time to complete, but I'm really happy with how they turned out. I'm also excited to bring you art prints of my digital artwork that is available in postcard and A5 sizes. This heavily inspired my theme for February, so I hope you check it out on my coffee shop, linked on the video description below. Alright, that finally completes my February 2024 bullet journal setup. Let's flip through and take a look again with all the spreads we made together. My layouts are definitely a work of patience, and I think I've made a lot of interactive designs here. It is really surprising sometimes how I am able to execute such ideas. But that's everything for this February 2024 Plan With Me video. I hope you enjoyed it and that you got some inspiration from it. Thank you so much for watching. May God bless this coming month for you. Be kind to yourself and the people around you. Stay creative, and I'll talk to you soon on my next one. Bye!